It's time to learn about the magic wand of the art world. Follow along with me as I teach you about the mighty paintbrush. Let's talk about brushes. Have you ever looked at all the choices of brushes in the art store, or maybe the brushes you have, or the brushes that come with art supplies that you have, and wondered, what the heck am I supposed to do with this? Which one is the best? What are they for? Should I be spending money on brushes? Should I use a cheap brush? Should I buy a new brush? What should I do? We're going to talk about brushes today and all of the different types of brushes that there are, and if you're only going to have a few brushes, which brushes are the best. Let's talk about the anatomy of a brush. There are different types of brushes. There's a lot more choices than this, but these are the basics here. Round brushes are shaped. They're round, as you can see. And there are flat brushes, which are flat like this. Turn them sideways, they look flat. There are fan brushes, which are a lot of fun to paint with. There's a fan. And there are filbert brushes, which kind of round out at the ends. I'll show you one of those in a second. Parts of a brush. There's the handle, obviously. There's the metal part. If you know what this is called, you'll sound really smart to your friends. It's called the ferrule. And then this is the bristles, obviously. And the bristles can be made with all kinds of stuff. Typically, most of the brushes that you get have synthetic bristles. Some are made of real animal fur. And whatever you feel about that, there are different benefits to both kinds of bristles. All of these brushes make different types of marks. So if you look at a round brush, for example, and you look at the way that it presses itself down onto your paper or your hand or whatever, it's gonna make a different mark than a flat brush, for example. So every brush kind of has its own reason for being. Fan brushes you can use to blend and soften things, and you can do all kinds of things with them, but we'll get more into that and I'll show you some examples. There are typically two types of brushes. There are watercolor brushes, which are soft and are specifically for water media like watercolor and gouache. And there are acrylic brushes, which are a little bit rougher and specifically for the drying time and the viscosity of acrylic, which is a little more plasticky and harder. So we'll start out talking about watercolor brushes, and then we will quickly talk about acrylic and oil brushes. When you buy an inexpensive watercolor set, it usually comes with a brush. There is nothing wrong with these brushes, and it is great to use all different kinds of brushes because it makes you a better painter. Even painting with a lower than usual quality brush will make you a better painter. So this is the brush that comes with your typical kids watercolor set. And if you look closely at it, you can see these little bristles. They kind of fan out a little bit. They're not very uniform. That is one of the problems that you have when you're using a brush that's a little bit cheaper. And you can get all kinds of marks. You can get marks like this, loose floral abstract marks. You can do all kinds of things with cheap brushes. Sometimes if you don't care about your brush and you just want to make some crazy marks, one of these kids' brushes is great. Let's talk about expensive brushes versus cheap brushes. So one of my favorite brush brands that I get from Blick, and I'm going to tell you that generally Blick has the best prices in brushes and they have some really good sales, is Raphael. This is a size 22. It's called a soft aqua. And then here's a little Raphael that is a size 805. No, I don't see the size on this one. Anyway, it's look at the fancy wire. It's all like wrapped around. This, for some reason, I can just use and use and use these and they don't lose their shape. So do you see this shape? It's really uniform. I'm looking at this, and when you see how the bristles are, they're very nicely cut. They're like trimmed by hand. These are made by an artisan, so they hold up to a lot of painting and they have a lot of spring to them. So when you kind of push them into your paper, they bounce back. And those are some of my favorite brushes. I probably use these 3 or 4 Raphael brushes the most of all of my brushes. I just gravitate toward these. I don't know why, I do. And I would love to know the brush brands that you like in the comments. I'm super interested in what people like. I also really like this one. This is not an expensive brush, but it's called a Simply Simmons. I don't even know where I got this, but look at the end of that. Look how nice and smooth this is. So there's that. Cheaper brushes, like this guy. This is from my daughter's paint. This is a Royal Fine Sable, just like your school kind of brush. And it works, it's fine, but do you see how the hairs kind of come out from the middle? It's kind of puffy. Again, if I left this in the water overnight or for even like 20 minutes, it would start to be shaped this way, it would lose its shape. Whereas these that are a little bit more expensive don't lose their shape. This is another one I really like. It's a smooth, and you can feel it. Like there's people that go into the paint store or the art store and they're like rubbing the brushes on their face like weirdos. Yeah, that's me. So definitely a difference. This is just a Blick Scholastic. These are actually really nice. A lot of the Blick products that they make, if you're a beginner and you want something that is going to work, a Blick Scholastic Wonder White, it's great for beginning painting. It really does hold up. And look at how you like to paint. In this brush, the bristles are a little bit shorter. They're a little springier, so I can press down hard. I can get a little bit more detail with this. And some of these have longer bristles, like this guy. The other thing that's kind of fun is, like for example, a liner brush. If you look at this, it's a long liner brush. And if you buy an expensive, this is not an expensive liner brush, which means it's probably gonna start fluffing out a little bit after I use it. Buying expensive liner brushes really does make a difference and makes your art a little bit better. Another thing that I recommend investing in if you like to do small work is a miniature brush. This, you can't really tell as much, but there's also a brush called a deer foot that actually looks like the bottom of a deer foot. These are my miniature brushes. These are teeny tiny, and these are great for getting detail, and you want to spend a little bit more money on these. This is a brand, this is Princeton Art and Brush Company, and I think this was like $12 for the set. Look at this little baby fan brush. Isn't that adorable? And that one comes with this, which is just a few hairs. Look how tiny that is. That actually broke, so I had to tape it. But these are really fun. There's a lot of little tiny detail brushes, and really it's just about what you like. What do you feel comfortable using? You don't have to spend a ton of money on these. Just use what you like. So in all, I would really recommend the Raphael brand. Anything from Princeton is usually pretty good, and it's mid-price. Blick brands and Royal Langnickel is always a good bet, again mid-priced. If you see these in Medine, this brand is on Amazon and they sell watercolor palettes, which I can talk to you about in another video, which I would recommend. They are pretty good. The brushes are nice to hold because they have this kind of like interesting handle. The bristles are not as good. They don't last as long, but they're fine for what they are. That's what I would recommend. I have not even talked to you about water brushes, which is a whole new ball game. These are super fun. Look at all these water brushes. Water brushes are little water-filled brushes, and they've got different tips, and you can put water in them. And these are really fun if you're traveling because you can use watercolor pencils and a water brush, and you can just go right over these with water and you squeeze them. Some of them work. Oh, this one doesn't have water in it. Some of them work better than others, and they have all different tips. And here's one that I like. One's kind of messy. Derwent is a really affordable brand, and it's quite good. I think these are Molotow. These are good too. I really like these. They're nice, sharp little points. And then these are just like some random cheapo Amazon ones, but they work great. They're great. So it doesn't matter. And it's interesting when you screw these on, the water brushes usually screw the opposite way so that you don't accidentally unscrew them when you're working with them. So kind of fun. So there's that. Here is a very large filbert. This is a Princeton brand, and this is really soft. This is a Princeton, it says 6100FB. I don't know. It's large. It's a size 20. And I love these. They're so soft. This is a flat brush. This is just like a painter's brush. Use these to put things down. Angled brushes are another kind of acrylic brush. Now, when you see these that have these kind of rough bristles, don't discount them just because they look cheap or they look rough. They're actually really good for laying down a lot of paint. Sometimes you have a cheap acrylic paint and you need to do a couple of layers. These are great for that. They may not be so great for detail, but they're good for laying down paint, and they do collect a lot of paint. So think about those for laying down paint. Think about these soft guys for detail. What's super weird about brush sizing is that, for example, this is a size 22 right here. This is a size 20. So there's not really a lot of consistency in brush sizing. The best bet that I would do when ordering brushes is I would just go online, look at the examples compared to other things, or maybe chat with some artists, or you can always email me and I will tell you what I suggest. This is one of the size 22 Raphael Soft Aqua, which I would recommend, and I have that in a 8, a 10, and a 12 as well. And these are the ones I probably use the most, but you might have different preferences. I do use the water brushes quite a bit as well, the Derwent set, which is pretty inexpensive. So that is what I would recommend. Go out and buy some brushes, have fun, and you can't go wrong.